Welcome to Unfiltered, Unspoken. Today, City Kid is out today because she's not feeling good, so I'll be solo by myself. You seen BJ yesterday, but we actually sit in the office together, but she is home. So this is the beauty of this. BJ has a story to tell, but not also with the story to tell. Her story has connected, and she actually works with the good fight, helping me as an executive assistant, but with all her entrepreneur stuff going on. So she is a self-made businesswoman plus the executive assistant of the of me, the founder of the Good Fight, and she is rocking doing all of these things. So I'm gonna bring BJ up because she has a very interesting story to tell. And I'm gonna ask her questions. We organic, and we gonna go back and forth, so you just see us. BJ, can you come up and introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much for having me, Miss Good. It's an honor to be here. I am BJ McClendon, the Pajama Pro, and I am the CEO and founder of PajamaPro.com, which is the world's fastest growing work at home resource and referral support community. We teach people how to leverage technology to create a full time income.
I
I
guess
can
we will get into this. Sorry, I had the mute on. But I guess we will get into this then. We talk so
Yes.
much. So we're gonna start from the beginning. Let's
Okay.
go all the way to your childhood, how it all began. Can you tell us some of your traumas that you have been through?
Okay. Well, I'll start out by saying I live my life to be a testament that how you start is not how you have to finish. I was born to two very, average parents. Um, and I was raised, with the best intentions in mind, but life wasn't like it was. Well, life wasn't then like it is now, where we have all the access to information, training, and resources. So, my parents, in their attempt to provide the best for me, did inadvertently neglect some things that were very important, which led to me being molested by a family member. And I'm not going to specify any further than that, just because everybody's still living, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or cause anybody any discomfort, because I'm truly healed and moved on from it. But I was molested by a cousin from the age of about 3 or 4 until I was probably about 9 or 10, when that person was taken out of my home. So they lived with me and then they were removed from the home, not for any reasons having to do with the molestation. And from that point, I kind of, I guess, since it was a young age, I just kind of got the impression that I didn't have a right to say no when it came to people invading my personal space. So throughout my life, I've had numerous instances where I was taken advantage of by older men. It was always an older man. And, at the time when I was doing it, I thought it was consensual because Um, I wasn't necessarily saying no, but if you're 12, 13, 14, 15, and 25, 20, 30, and 40, and 50, 56 was the oldest guy I dealt with at probably the age of 19. Hindsight 2020, those were child molesters. Okay. So when I was 12, I was forcefully raped by a friend of a friend, and I was impregnated. So my pediatrician found out and told my mother. And my mother, of course, she was, like embarrassed and everything else that comes along with that. And she asked me who the father was. Now, mind you, I was 12 years old. I didn't even know how babies were made at that time. So my response was a quick, like, I don't know. I didn't know that that wasn't a thing that you shouldn't know. So when she told my father was just like, oh, we got to take a trip to the butcher. Nobody explained to me what was going on. Nobody asked me if I was violated. They just assumed that I was out there being fast, and they treated me that way. as opposed to treating me like a victim. And from that point on, I really was kind of on my own, able to do what I want, go where I want. It's almost like my parents lost interest or faith in me. They did the things that they had to do as far as feeding, clothing, educating, and things like that. But the moral and emotional connection was broken.
Okay. Can I chime in real quick? Because I want to
Absolutely.
wheel back. I want to wheel back because I know we talk a lot. So
Yeah,
we have to get
absolutely.
into it. But we're gonna follow because I want the audience to I want to depict certain things and I want them to see the traumas that you went through.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so leading up to the 12-year-old rape from the molestation piece from 3 or 4 until the age of 9 and getting rape. The baby came from rape, correct?
No. Well, so there were two pregnancies. I was pregnant when I was 12, and
Okay.
that baby was aborted, but they didn't explain to me what was taking place. They just took me, did the interview, and gave me the abortion.
Okay. So how did that make you feel? How did that take from you as a child?
Okay, that's a very good question. And thank you for asking. Because one of the things that traumatized me is the fact that nobody asked how I felt about what they had, come to find out. Um, as far as the piece where my relative was molesting me, at a very young age, I understood that my relative was not all there, so to speak. So, ironically, I don't hold him 100% responsible. I do hold the adults that were in charge of supervising responsible, but I don't blame them, right? So, the 12-year-old pregnancy, when my pediatrician, told everybody, it made me feel unwanted, like I didn't have any power or any value, um, like I was just here for other people's pleasures, desires, and I wasn't allowed to have any of my own, or even if it was for me to say no. And many instances, my voice inside would be saying no, but my body would be powerless to fight it off. And that came from the message that I got at a very young age.
Okay, I understand. Wow, I'm at deep. So the second pregnancy was by an older man, or
Yes, he was older than me. I was 16 and he was 19 going on 20. And my sister had introduced me to him. They worked together at a club. My sister is much older than me, and so if anybody she introduced to me, they would be older too. So he was 19 going on 20, and he worked at a club in the local area with my sister. And then I went for my 16th birthday. She took me to the adult club for my 16th birthday and introduced me. And probably about 2 months later, I found out that I was pregnant.
oh wow. And so how did he react to finding out that you were pregnant?
Well, his reaction was very immature, and it was. It sounds so stupid. It sounded stupid then, but his response was, "Well, if it's a girl, I'm out. If it's a boy, I'll stay." But there's a little history to that. He had his first child when he was 12 years old. That was a girl, and so he really didn't have a healthy upbringing or example of how he should respond to that particular situation. And although we were, courting each other and everything else, it wasn't really like oh, we're in love, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, we're building for the future. We were just hunching. You know what I'm saying? And so in our conversations, because of what happened when I was 12 and my warped sense of, reality as to what took place, I formed this story in my head that when I was 12, something happened to me, which would have been the rape. And as a result of the rape, they took me and gave me a medical procedure that took my insides out. At 46, I know that's not what happened, but at 12 years old, that's what I thought happened. And so from 12 until 16, that's the story that I told to reassure anyone that I was being intimate with that there was no chance of pregnancy, because I truly believe that they took my insides out. So when I got pregnant at 16, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm like the Immaculate Conception. God gave me another chance. Little did I know I'd be pregnant 7 more times after that. And there was really nothing, nothing wrong with me other than my body probably just wasn't mature enough,
And
to,
so let's go back. So
Mhm.
the gang rape, you went through a gang rape, right?
A female friend of mine who was the same age was dating a guy who was 21 years old, and her, and a friend of his held my legs for his brother to assault me.
So they held you down and let his brother assault you. And all of them were
Yes.
older?
Yes. All of the guys were at least 21 years old or older.
And there was no accountability, nothing happened to them.
No, there was no accountability because my parents didn't pursue it. They never entertained the idea that I was violated. I really truly didn't even understand that I was violated until years later when I was watching the Oprah show and she had a guest on that described a date rape situation. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what happened. And so that's how I learned what happened to me. And when I shared it with my mom being a Caribbean woman, and they're not very big on sensitivity. Her response to me was, "Good for your ass. You should have took your ass to school." And so that really crushed me right there. Like, oh my gosh, did you really say that?
And you're 12
But
years
it
old.
really did.
So I
Yes,
guess
when I was 12
essentially you
years old.
didn't feel protected by your parents.
No, I didn't feel protected by anyone. There was an incident where a young man was trying to advance me for sexual activities, and I was using my voice to tell him no, and he put handcuffs on me right in my front yard, and he shot a 22 pistol at my feet to try to scare me. And my father was sitting right on the couch in the living room. He never once came to the door to see what's going on or, inquire what was happening. Eventually the boy took the handcuffs off of me, and I didn't get shot or anything, but I had to deal with that and process that on my own.
What kind of trauma did that do to you?
I can't hear you.
What kind of trauma did that do
Mm,
to you?
it just it just re it just really reinforced the feeling that I wasn't of value. Nobody was interested in protecting me. And if I was going to be protected, I would have to protect myself.
So you pretty much felt like an outcast of
So
the family.
oh yeah, absolutely I did. Absolutely I did. I grew up in a household that was really weird. It wasn't so much that I felt unloved or that people were mean and abusive to me, because that definitely was not the case. But my parents were hands-off people. They were not the kissy, feely, love on you type of people. They showed their love by their provision. I keep a roof over your head. I make sure that you're involved in the necessary social activities. I take you places and things of that nature. I discipline you, educate you, and so on and so forth. But no one was really teaching me about womanhood and what it was to value yourself as a woman, and what what uh what right you had to say no when it came to your body. There was no discussions about good touch and bad touch. And anytime I did say something about the sex topic, it was go to your room, or they would change the subject. They were very uncomfortable coming from an era where sex just wasn't spoken of outside the bedroom.
Wow. Okay, let's go back because you were introduced to narcotics young too, correct?
Yeah, yes, I was at
Can you?
probably the age, I'll say probably about 7 or 8.
That's
um
young.
it was really young. It was really young, but I attribute it to me being nosy. I didn't intentionally go to try and use drugs, because I spent a lot of time on my own, just exploring the world unsupervised. There was no barrier to the danger. And if I didn't know it of my own, I used to spend a lot of time at, I'm going to say, a relative's house who is very close in relation. And that relative was married to a person who was very abusive, but they were a very heavy drug user. PCP, cocaine, meth, whatever was available at the time, trust and believe he got it. And he had it. And I was a nosy kid. So I would rummage through their drawers when I was over at their home, and anything I found, I would experiment and, emulate whatever I saw them doing, or, just really experimenting. So at a very young age, it became a consistent habit for when I go over there, go straight to the drawer. I didn't know I was developing a drug addiction at the time, but that's exactly, technically what it was. I would say though that experience kind of saved me in the end, because due to the fact that my body was introduced to the drugs and so many different drugs at such an early age without putting an identity on what drugs I was developing a taste for, it prevented me from seeking out that drug in my adult age, and now tipping over into being a full-fledged addict that is seeking out crack or cocaine or whatever. I was just seeking, I want to go to my relative's house. I just want to go to my relative's house. But it was really the drugs that I was, you know, having call out to me to go over there. So now when I go turn to an adult and I have the opportunity to say, oh, that's crack. Oh, that's cocaine. Oh, I would try it, but it didn't have that effect on me because it wasn't my first time.
Mm.
I was thinking it. I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. Yeah, okay, this no big deal. What's this? Oh, this is cocaine. Okay, so now I know it's cocaine and I can do it. So I've always been just recreational. I've never really got hooked on any drugs, and I attribute that to the young introduction, into my system, as to why I was so tolerant of it and able that, and the fact that God kept me. God truly
Mhm.
kept me.
So how long were you on the drugs? So you started at 7. When did you end?
So, visiting my relative's house, I can say from they were, let me see, they were together for about 10 years. So, during that 10-year period, well, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12, I kind of didn't spend as much time at their house because they were in the middle of a separation. So my time going over there ended, and I wasn't seeking out any type of chemical substance to self medicate with. I turned to sex and promiscuity to out or release whatever, inner traumas or feelings that I was having. And, that became my drug during the ages, I would say, from probably 12, 13, up until maybe my earlier mid 20s. Um, Maybe around 19, I'd say maybe even 18 to 25, I started doing marijuana, uh, pretty consistently on a daily basis. And in my 25th year, when I moved from New York to down south, I got introduced formally to cocaine, and I started you know experimenting with cocaine and using socially up until I was about 27. And when I was 27, it had escalated to the point where now I was selling drugs and dibbling dabbling in that lifestyle. So
And then going over the relative's house, you had grown men, older men, correct?
yes,
Doing things with you and introduced to things there as well, correct?
yes, absolutely. I really kind of call my experience an extreme case of unintentional neglect. Um, Due to some of the things that had happened in my very early childhood, there was just a kind of maturity that was on me. And that maturity gave the people that were my guardians the impression that I was maybe older or more mature or ready for more responsibility than I actually was. So, how they related to me wasn't that like adult to child. They treated me like a peer. So this particular relative, when their mate had male friends over, um, I'm not sure whether they were soliciting my relatives for permission to approach me, or if they were just doing it and not being stopped or what. But on several different occasions, I could probably say maybe three different occasions, adult men that were friends of my relative's mate advanced me and were permitted to engage in inappropriate relations with me. There was never any reprimand to me or them. And it kind of just was kind of played off as the norm.
So how old were you and how long did this go on?
So I would say probably up until I was around 14, 15, because remember I was introduced to my first live child's father when I was 16, on my 16th birthday. And that was due to the fact my relative had broken up with the person that they were with for a number of different reasons. And I like to hope that one of them was some of the things that took place there. Keep in mind that that relative was also being abused. So um, their strength and voice wasn't as powerful as it could have been. Um, However, that time period is when that took place. So from probably about 12ish when they got married up until about 14, 15 when they separated. And that's how I ended up, getting introduced to my child's father.
Now how much older were these men than you?
So when during the time period, I would say consistently at least 8 to 10 years older than me. There were men of different ages, but they were always at least 10 years older than me.
So you're 12, they're 22 and
Yeah,
older.
and older. Yeah, yeah. And mind you, I've never lied about my age, and that's something I prided myself on, because something in me knew that kind of felt like adults shouldn't be messing with kids. So it was almost like a dare. I'm going to be honest about my age and give you the opportunity to do what's right. But nobody ever did what was right. They always did what was wrong.
Wow. Did any of those men advance drugs to you?
Hmm. No,
No.
no. I can only say there was one experience that I had that included two older men. I was hanging with the older female who was probably about 8 years older than me at the time. Remember, I presented as much more mature because of the experiences that I've had. Um, they had like alcohol and weed, but no hard.
Hold on, we're having technical difficulties. BJ will be right back. Hold on 1 second. Uh-uh. While she's trying to get back on, we're just trying to show the transparency of how a child goes through being molded into dealing with adults at a young age and manipulated. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. I put on
Yeah.
Do Not Disturb, but it still came through.
Okay. No, it's okay. So, from 3 up until you're an adult, almost, you're going through molestation, pretty much rape, being taken advantage of by older men. How did this affect you into your adulthood?
Oh man, how much time we got on this show, girl?
Oh,
We can go on for days.
hey, we we
We
we got
can.
we got about 30 more minutes on this.
Okay. Let me sum it up in a nutshell, and I don't say this to degrade anyone or to express any, you know, personal feeling for relationships that I may be in now, but I always refer to penises as weapons of mass destruction because in my life, most, if not all, of the pitfalls or the traumas that I've experienced have come at the tip of a penis, and that's just being honest. Now, because of that, I do have a heightened sense of awareness when it comes to um, sexual abuse and identifying it in young people, or I always keep a hyper vigilant eye out on adults when they're interacting with children because of that. And that's really the main thing that how it has affected me in my adulthood. I didn't know until probably close to in my 30s that a woman was something that I was supposed to achieve. I just felt like a person just in the world here for whoever's, desire or whatever. But I was never taught to really have my own desires and my own goals and my own esteem.
Deep. Very, very, very deep. Okay, so we've touched a lot because we want to bring awareness to childhood traumas and how it affects children and the things that are going on in the houses and how adults need to have more supervision over our youth.
Hmm.
Because a lot of kids are being abused in homes and it's being swept up underneath the rug, and it's not fair because if you're 12 years old and you have a man that's 22 years old and they think this is acceptable, but you have multiple men, so it shows that there is a pattern of inconsideration, right? To the
Absolutely.
youth. um let's jump into, because you went through some domestic violence as well too.
Well,
um
I consider the incest domestic
Domestic
because it
violence.
is in family, and it was violent because it was a violation. But I've been in one relationship that was very short lived. Because although I did not feel like I had a voice to tell people not to advance me sexually, one thing I didn't feel powerless to stand up to is people hitting me. So I didn't view hitting and unwanted sexual advances as the same kind of violence. And I kind of treated them differently. I felt like I owed people sex, but I didn't owe them the opportunity to hit me. So I was dealing with a Jamaican guy at one point, and I didn't like him anymore. So I dismissed him, and I immediately got on the phone in my apartment. I was probably between 19 and 21 at this time, and started talking to another friend on the phone. And he doubled back and stood at my door and listened. So when I looked out the window to see if his car was still there, he was smart enough to go park it around the corner and then walk back. So when he knocked on my door, I didn't know it was him. And as I opened the door, he bop, and he choked me until I passed out. He had like one of his fingers was cut off when he was a kid. So all he had was a stump on his thumb, and he took his thumb and pressed it into my eye socket. And to this day, that's why I wear glasses. I didn't wear glasses prior to that. So he pressed it into my eye socket, and he choked me with my shirt until I passed out. But by the grace of God, my mother happened to knock on the door, bringing my 4-year-old, he was 4 at the time, home to me from whatever outing they were at. And he stopped attacking me, when the door rang. And I remember him slapping me, telling me, get up, somebody's at the door. I got up, I went and answered the door and act like nothing happened. He didn't tell me to act like nothing happened, but I act like nothing happened, and I let my kid in. I don't, well, I know why. I've never been able to go to my mother to say, save me. So I didn't feel like tell her, I'm in danger was the thing to do. So I just received my kid, and my son and I went into the bathroom, and I always mounted a phone on my bathroom wall, and I called 911 from there and had the police come and get him. And they took him. I eventually had to go to Janine Shapiro to interview, who was a New York State district attorney for domestic violence at the time. She has like a judge show now and everything, and get a restraining order. And that was the extent of, him beating on me. uh, after I left that apartment, I moved to another apartment, and an older man in the neighborhood saw me, took a liking to me, and he started hanging around me and my, younger friends. And one day he says, "That's my wife." Like, my parents weren't married. Marriage wasn't a thing that, I knew people to aspire to. It just wasn't part of my reality. So I was like, "Oh, how you gonna marry somebody that never asked you?" Mind you, me and the man are not dating. We're not courting. We're not even flirting with each other. He just silently likes me. So the other people in the cipher that we were, smoking weed with and stuff, they were like, "Yeah, he likes you. He said he gonna marry." I'm like, "Well, you can't marry somebody if they don't ask you, right? So how is that gonna happen?" They was like, "So if he asks you, will you marry him?" I'm like, "I guess. Why not?" The next day, we went down to the courthouse, got a marriage license, and we got married. I'm thinking it's all a joke because I'm a kid, and I have no basis for that. But he believed it. And so he kicked his way into my home, and he was like, "You're my wife now." And he followed me around and stalked me. And he did eventually force himself on me. And I justified it saying, "Well, I guess if I'm married to him, it's all right, even though I didn't want to." But the reason why I did eventually let him stay in is because prior to that happening, another man in the neighborhood where I was living, he forced me. I went to take my trash out, and he forced me up into my building and held me hostage in the stairwell all night till the sun came up. And when I tried to break away from him because my kid was in the house sleeping, I'm like, "Oh, okay, let me go." He was like, "No." And the whole reason I stayed in the hallway, because I could tell he was trying to come in the house with me. So when I did break to go in the house, he forced himself in at knife point, and he forced me, he orally raped me. I guess that's a thing. He didn't force me to have sex, but he did force me to have, perform oral things at knife point. And all I could think was, just don't wake my baby up. If I could get through this without my baby waking up, I could shower and we could act like nothing, I could act like nothing never happened, and I'll get him on his way. So, um, yeah, those were two of the experiences that I had during between 19 and 21, that kind of shaped what I do today.
You've been through a lot of sexual abuse, a
I
whole
have.
lot of sexual abuse. How has that, and from childhood into adulthood? So you're going through it. It's like it's almost normal, like it's supposed to happen in your life. This is supposed to happen, right? How did that even? How did that affect you as an adult?
So I can tell you it stunted my growth, because one of the things that we haven't touched on, but I like to make light of so that the public can be aware and make the necessary adjustments. When a woman, whether she is 12 years old or 21 or 31, becomes pregnant and her body ends that pregnancy, no matter whether it's prematurely or full term, her body is going to go into a phase of postpartum. And I'd like for the audience to think, if a woman who is fully grown, educated, supported by family network, and have, a full moral life experience to draw from, can suffer the effects of postpartum psychosis, depression, and the like, what do you think a 12-year-old girl who wasn't explained what her body is going through would experience in that type of situation? So I tell people that I suffered from undiagnosed and untreated postpartum depression for the better part of 25 years, because and the reason why I say that is, after that pregnancy where they aborted the baby, I did have a child at 16. But after I had that child, I was raped again by a neighbor who I grew up with, knew me from the time I was 3 years old. He was older than me, and he came in my back door. This is after I had my baby, and I guess he had the impression that, well, she's screwing now, so it's okay. He came in my back door and he raped me in my father's bed. And I was forced to still, walk around and act like nothing had happened. But that encounter impregnated me again. And because of the lesson that I learned from my parents when I was 12, I thought that abortion was birth control. So instead of putting my foot down or being, even though I couldn't have prevented that particular instance, there were 6 other instances after that where I could have put prevention in place, but I didn't know about birth control and contraceptives. I just know if somebody gets pregnant, they get an abortion. That's all I knew. So I used from that time after I had my son up until I had my daughter, I used abortion as birth control. And I say that without any shame because of how it led up to it. I just wasn't, some girl who was out there being wild and crazy and, conscious of my behavior and just not caring. You understand what I'm saying? Every time I was in an encounter, it was unexpected. It wasn't premeditated. There was never any dating involved. There was never any, chivalry or anything. It was just kind of like, I like you. I want you. And if I couldn't get away, I was like, okay, either I'm going to get punched in the face or I could just hunch him, go home, take a shower, and it'd be over with. And that's how I handled it.
That's deep. That is deep. That's real deep.
Yeah.
So, did you get professional help?
I did, but it wasn't directly for the sexual abuse. So, oh gosh, after my first incarceration experience, I became pregnant again. And this time it was under the circumstances, the guy that I was with when I got locked up for trafficking drugs and all that good stuff. We were co-defendants and we couldn't be together anymore, so to speak. So the court system gave us, an opportunity to say our last goodbyes and go our separate ways. Well, I had a friend who his idea of how I should get over that failed, that relationship that couldn't go on anymore was to go find another, to jump into another situationship. So we went to Walmart and we saw our victim, so to speak, and we picked him. I had no idea, hindsight 2020, after we found out that the person that we picked was somebody that I knew. I just didn't recognize him because I didn't know him well enough. It was one of my good work friends' baby father. And he looked completely different from the two times that I'd seen him before. Like when I seen him with her, he had long dreads. This time he was clean shaven. It was a totally different thing. And it wasn't until after we were already intimate and dealing, he happened to bring his kids to my house. And I was like, wait a minute, I know these kids from somewhere. So asked him what's his baby's mother. And I discovered, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my homegirl. What do you mean? And the same time we were finding out that was my homegirl, we found out that I had gotten pregnant from our escapades. Now, at this time, I was on birth control, but I did take an antibiotic for an abscess tooth that made it not work. And the stars lined up, and I became pregnant again. And that's when I got introduced to Maryland because I chose to leave the state and let them resolve whatever they could with their relationship because I really did respect the girl and I had no animosity, in the situation. And I came to Maryland and I had my baby, but my baby died 10 days after she was born.
Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Losing your child, did that take you through another depression or create another dynamics to the trauma that you were going through?
Yeah, I think my trauma and my depression is more like a 17-layer cake than it is, just one isolated incident that set me. I would say safely that I've been depressed since I was violated when I was 3. I would act out. I would, they would say, oh, you just say anything. Or I was rambunctious. Or they would say, oh, she's got a lot of attitude. And a lot of the things that they say about young Black girls when it's a masking mechanism for the pain we're really feeling inside. You understand? So, yeah, that's really how I look at it. It just compounded my depression. But it was through that experience, losing my daughter, that I was able to get my first opportunity to have therapy. Okay. And that's how I say, even though I lost my baby, I always say my baby was born with a broken heart. due to the circumstances, because that was the nature of her defect, why she didn't make it. But her life truly changed mine in the 10 days that I was here, because I was able to do some soul searching. I was able to get therapy through Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. I can't give them enough accolades for the services that they extended to me in the aftermath of that experience that really helped me put the pieces together and recover from some of the traumas that I experienced as a young girl.
Love it. Love it. And seeking professional help does help. And I tell people that I self-heal, but, you know, dealing with someone that has been through traumas that you have been through, I also say that helps, because sometimes that depression that may be a 5 could be a 3 if you talk to someone that has been through similar situations to help you cope through it. But professional help is always needed. I had professional help, but I felt as though it wasn't a benefit for me. So I took what I had and I used the techniques for myself. So
Absolutely.
that's how I did that. But I want to go back to also when you had your son at 16, your parents put you out.
No, they didn't put me out. When I announced to my mom that I was pregnant, my mother, in her very stern Trinidadian voice, she said, "Act like you don't have a mother." And at the time, I really thought my mother was disowning me,
Uh-huh.
and that she was, like throwing the last piece of me away that she could. Hindsight 2020, as an adult who has now lost my mother, and I was able to spend, my mother lived with me up until the day she died. I understood what she meant by act like you don't have a mother. If you don't have a mother to lean on, you figure out a way. If you
Okay.
don't have a father to lean on, you figure out a way. Now, my mother has never let me fall without putting a hand out to, help me get up, right? But she
Mm-hmm.
never tried to stop me from falling.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Now, once I fell, yeah, I might have to listen to us, whatever remarks she was gonna make. But the door was open, the wallet was open, the resource was there, so on and so forth. So in that way, she never left me. My father, he sold the home that I grew up in when I was approaching 17, and he moved back to his home state of Ohio. So I didn't believe that the house could ever be sold, because I was raised being told this is your home and it's going to go to you and whatever. But when I got pregnant at 16 and had the baby, my dad kind of checked out. But that was his own traumas and demons that he was fighting, because I was raised to believe that I was only one of 2 children. After he died, I found out I had 5 siblings that he
Oh,
never acknowledged and never took care of them. And they all ended up being crackheads and alcoholics. And that's a whole nother show. But when he made the sale of the home, I was working and I was giving my money, because I wasn't old enough to like manage a bank account and stuff. I was giving my excess money for savings to my mom for safekeeping. And my mom used that money in conjunction with my father to get me an apartment near where my mom was living, because they had separated at that point and were living in different homes. And so I wasn't put out, but I was put out. You feel what I'm
okay.
saying? I moved into my home, my apartment, just probably before my 17th birthday.
Wow. So you've
Hmm.
been, I moved out of 17 going on 18 too. So I
Hmm.
definitely,
Hmm.
I understand.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so let's jump into your adulthood.
Hmm.
After all the things that you have been through, did you suffer any more traumas, or after losing
Um,
your daughter was
I did. I did. So losing my daughter was pretty traumatic, and it compounded the depression. It sent me into a sort of isolation, and it kind of heightened the bipolar um, disorder that I developed. So I would go through periods of extreme high activity. I was real functional. If you look at me, you'd be like, yeah, nothing's wrong with her. She's on point. But then I'd crash, and it'll go in 6 month waves. I'll be up, productive, doing what I got to do, and I'll fall flat on my face and can't get out the bed for 6 months. I get up. You got this kid. You got to, I motivate myself. I get up, and then I'll crash because I really didn't have the skills or the education to know what I was doing. I was just kept by God and faking it till I'm making it and just making it happen, figuring it out as I went along, you know? Um, Relationships was just not something, it's something that just kind of, I don't know. I never sought out a relationship, and I really never even had a relationship up until, I don't know, probably when I got married the second time, which was like my last boyfriend, when I really, because it took me to sit down and say, okay, get real. What is it we doing here? Let's put together what we've learned this far. And I had a really long laundry list of, oh, my boyfriend's gonna do this, and he's gonna have this, and he's gonna look like this, and he's gonna make this, and that became so unrealistic that I really had to say, like, wait a minute, I'm not fitting on nobody's list. So I know ain't nobody in this world gonna fit on this list. You feel me? I need to look beyond people's faults and see their need. I need to see people as people and not as commodities or what they can, add to my life. And it's not until I did that I was able to be in a healthy, relationship that would build.
Okay. Okay. Deep. So you're giving back now to the community with such wonderful things. Can you tell us how your hurt and your pain turned into your passion now?
Absolutely. Um, so being a child that suffered from, circumstantial neglect, like I said, it wasn't intentional, and they weren't abusive to me, in any, well, not in any way that people know of, but there were subtle things that ended up adding up to abuse. But right now, I consider myself an advocate for peace, an advocate for perspective, because everything in life, if we put it in perspective, we can work our way through figuring it out. So I'm just really on high alert when it comes to kids. If a kid walks in front of me, they're my responsibility. It's my job to keep them safe. I am hyper vigilant when it comes to kids and their safety and things of that nature. So that's why my mind is constantly figuring out ways to help people. Segue to PajamaPro.com, one of the biggest ways and platforms that I plan on giving. And it's an umbrella company that a lot of different ancillary services come underneath. So PajamaPro.com was born out of the need for me to figure out a way to keep babies from dying. I saw in the community in Georgia that I was living in a lot of instances of young babies being abused, killed, hurt at the hands of the new boyfriend, okay, or some unqualified babysitter. And I was like, oh my God, these young ladies have to have a way to provide for themselves and their babies without sacrificing their safety or their self-respect. They shouldn't have to lay on their backs and compromise their morals just to feed their kids and keep a roof over their head, or to keep the peace where they may have a place to stay. And they shouldn't have to leave their kids with just anybody so they can go make $100 a week um, at McDonald's or anything like that. So I was working for a major company, and after I had my last child, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to work full time. I'd been working for them for like 5 years straight seasonally, and I petitioned them for a full time position, and they rejected me. And I was pissed. Okay, I was like, I've been working here for 5 years, and y'all rejected me. In the end, the Lord always preserves you and sets you apart. He equipped me with the knowledge that I need and the skills that I learned at that job to
Mm-hmm.
take it into the world and serve the people. So I researched, I sat in a couple meetings that I was not invited to, and I was like a fly on the wall and act like I belonged there, and nobody caught on to the fact that I was there. And I was able to find out the secret behind call center business. And I became a formidable opponent, but very quietly, okay? Because I had to manage my depression and my bipolar episodes. I used that opportunity to be the boss in a call center industry as a way to be present with my family and to protect myself while I provide. And so now I offer that to the public as a means of how it relates to battered women. If there is a young woman or man that is suffering from domestic violence and they're in a situation where they need to get away and kind of hide themselves, they shouldn't be forced to depend on handouts in order to take care of their kids. I give them an opportunity to work from a stationary location in hiding, have their own money, and be able to, say, well, I need $500. I'm gonna get $500 without the stress of like, oh, I gotta ask and beg and plead with somebody and degrade myself and all of that. Or even, oh, let me see if I could hook up with this guy so he could give me a couple of dollars. That's one of the things that my company is devoted to providing, is an alternative to having to compromise your presence in your household with your children with your need to provide for your kids, you know? So, yeah, we have a number of different services, but the call center company is the one that I promote that protects the most people from domestic violence and from childhood traumas. If your parents can be there and they're not struggling for money, then the beatings might not happen as often. They can be more involved in your school schedule. They can be more involved in your social and, schedule and things like that.
Love it. Love it. So I'm going to ask you a question. This is an awkward question, but I'm going
Nothing's awkward for me. I'm an open book. That's one of the things I promise to do, is be transparent so I can help people.
So why did you want to work with the Good Fight?
Why did I want to work with the Good Fight? To be honest, I am a person that moves when the spirit moves me. And I believe that nothing happens for no reason. So when we met, how we met, and I was introduced to the name The Good Fight and the mission cause, I was like, wow, from my heart to her, to her lips. Then I heard the story behind The Good Fight and I was touched. And I was also grateful. I was grateful that I didn't have to experience, although everything that I experienced was physically traumatic in a way, I didn't bleed because of it. I didn't, it's just a different type of violence. You understand what I'm saying? And I was grateful that you were able to survive something like that and come up with a platform that will invite someone with my skills, talents, and experiences to partner to deliver something needed in the community. Did that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you tell folks all the wonderful things that you're doing with the Good Fight and how you're helping us expand our mission and our vision and the collective work that we're all doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really just being a part of the village, and I'm utilizing what I identify in myself as a servant spirit, the same spirit that wouldn't allow me to be combative and say no when I was being violated, is the same spirit that I allow myself to be used with when it comes to giving to the community and being selfless when I'm offering my skills and talents to someone else, so to help them grow, to help them develop. So that's really how I'm offering. And you hear me say this all the time because you're like, thank you so much. And I'm like, girl, let me do something first before you thank me. But then you said something that was very profound to me, and it corrected me and convicted me in my spirit on how I respond. You said, sis, just you being here and believing in me is enough. And I had to say, well, girl, sit your ass down. Pardon me if I'm not allowed to say it.
Yeah, this is unfiltered, unspoken.
Okay, so I was like, sit your ass down and don't minimize your impact because you don't count it as something big, because things are only valued by the person receiving it. Like if I give you something, it's up to you to put a value on it. You understand? And so you valued what I gave you, even though I didn't think it was much. So I'm not going to downplay it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to expand and give you more of what you said you really love, or
Mm-hmm.
that you respond to. So if I don't do nothing but sit there and support and encourage you and be your little personal cheerleader, and I never file a paper, or I never do nothing, I feel like, well, shoot, I'm doing the most for her. I'm doing what I can for her. You understand? So, I mean, that's really how I'm doing. I'm here to be a servant because I do believe in charity. And I believe charity begins at home. And because you were introduced to me as family, family you will always be. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm able to forgive a blood family relative for the most egregious infraction, I think I could, find a little room to invite people that are not blood family and look beyond faults and see needs wherever, is met or needed.
Well, blood doesn't make you family.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
It doesn't, because blood has hurt us a lot. So,
Yes.
you
Yes. It
know,
really has.
and in the publicly, I want to thank you for everything. Just like all of the friends and the family, anyone associated with the legacy of the good fight, we are all doing some wonderful things, and thank you for being a part of a platform with your life experience and your story and your testimony to help push the vision and the mission to everyone. Just like it's not, you're not alone. And, everyone that's with the platform of the good fight is pushing. So, I want to thank all of y'all. But I want to go across because it's a shameless plug, as Sid would say. And I want you to go across, tell people how they can get in touch with you, what you have to offer for them. I know you shared a little bit of what you have to offer, but you're like this Jack in the Box, or you wear all these hats. We all in this office, we all wear all these hats, right? And people don't even realize how many hats, you know, um, that we wear. And I love you so much because one thing that you said to me is, I will quit my entrepreneur stuff to be full part of you once we get to a place that we're striving to get to. And I will never forget that. And for that, you are always here. So you know that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I mean that because, and when I say, of course, PajamaPro.com is my baby, but that was a statement to let you know I'm just not here for the meantime. I'm here to grow with you. I'm here to bend. I'm here to break. I'm here. Well, no, I don't like to be broken, but I'm here to bend with you, grow, mold, and just elevate and go through the different levels of life. um, I, I I'm happy that you welcome my opinion and you respect my opinion and my life experience, because it's always coming from a heart that look at perspective. Put the shoe on the other foot. Let's see how else we can look at this. Let's not just jump to the knee jerk reaction and get mad and get defensive or whatever. Let's see, what do we bring into this situation? So self accountability is something that I promote across all of my entrepreneurial endeavors as well. Being accountable for your own life and your own provision. One of the things that we as Americans, we get into the mindset that somebody owes us something and we're waiting on somebody to come and give it to us. And we raised the generation, and I say we, us kids who were latchkey kids that had to kind of pretty much raise ourselves, we raised a generation of people that are so dependent that they might not be any earthly good when it's their turn to carry the baton. So I'm committed to backtracking and correcting some of the things that I did as a young adolescent parent, which I didn't have any, knowledge base to, address, even raising my adult kids. I have programs and counseling, which I don't charge for my counseling because I'm not a licensed professional. I'm an experienced professional. And sometimes that's better than a license. The state can give a license, but life and experience is the best teacher. Okay.
And
So I
we
do counsel
practice that
people.
heavy over here. So
Yeah, big time, big time. So I definitely promote across all of my opportunities. helping people to change their mind, to change their life. So there's a number of different opportunities. You can be a call center agent for PajamaPro.com, virtual call center that we're helping people change the way they work, one household at a time. We provide world-class customer service on an inbound call basis, and those are hourly positions. Then we have business positions where if you're into health and wellness, we're a part of an organization called TLC, and we promote health and wellness and show people how their health is their wealth and use their health and their health journey to generate income by helping people and being transparent. We also have a network of licensed insurance professionals, because one thing about living, you're surely going to die. So we cover all ends of the spectrum. We cover employment, we cover healthy living, we cover estate planning and final expense preparation. And then in between there, we're a network that's each one teach one based. Okay, we teach and share what we know, and we absorb and learn from other people that know. And we've created a community of communities that foster that type of mentality. We're just here learning from each other, growing as a community so that we can give back and maybe correct some of the things that we didn't do as younger people and bring it into, fruition.
Love it. So we're at time. I'm going to ask you one more question and we're going to get out and shut it down.
Awesome.
You give the audience one thing, advice that helped you on the journey to healing.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make it quick because we are at time, but there's so many things. On the journey to healing, let go of the shame because it's not yours to bear. You're an innocent baby brought into this world, a clean canvas. And whoever was in charge of your yesterdays has everything to do with who you are today. So while you shouldn't blame them, you can name them, but take responsibility and do what you have to do today to be the person that you think somebody else should have made you to be, using all the experiences that you had in the past.
Love it. I love you.
I love you
Thank
back,
you.
sis.
Yes. I want to thank you for being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken podcast. It was an honor to share your testimony because the good fight is a living legacy. We want folks to know, the folks that are putting out the amount of works and their back history of what they're doing, that we are all healing through traumas and we continue to heal, but not just that, we're helping each other heal. We're helping each
Absolutely.
other through this platform. So Unfiltered Unspoken podcast is an extension of the Good Fight so that we can, a nonprofit organization, 501c3, helping others through life experiences, through the connection of others, in hopes that someone will connect with their life experience so that they can start the journey to healing. And we want to make it very transparent of all the work that we're doing and the folks that are under the umbrella as we continue to grow as one. We want to thank you for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. I hope that y'all took something out of BJ's life experience, and to know that you older men, you should not be messing with young girls. And it also goes vice versa, because there are a lot of men that are assaulted as well by older women as well, that mentally mess them up too, that put them in positions. So this goes vice versa. It's not acceptable, it's not cute, and folks need to start protecting their kids a little bit more, because boy, when I bust my story out, it's going to be big, right?
Yes.
It's going to be big. So we want to thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences of others. And I would say that again and again and again. Do not be afraid to start your journey to healing, because a lot of folks will shy away from the platform because they're scared to face their traumas. But we are living testimonies of how facing your traumas can help you through life and look at life different and do wonderful things. Because when you accept your traumas, there is nothing no one can say about you. You have accepted everything about you, and that brings love and peace within self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It
Yeah.
does. It
So say
does.
bye, BJ.
Bye, everybody. I'm looking forward to hearing from anybody that's looking to transform the way they work at PajamaPro.com. And I hope to see you again soon. See you later.
See you later.